Well, this is an important year, isn't it? There are certain things happening in our nation, and it's you can't open the newspapers or radio or television without being confronted with this major question that we need to answer in Australia. I've recently just come back from a number of overseas trips, and we are being watched around the world as to how we will respond to this question. When I invited Dr. Jackie Huggins to come and address us, I think it was over 12 months ago, we didn't know what the date would be, we didn't know what would be happening, but obviously any address of this kind is in that context, I think, this year of the voice. This is in fact the 6th Indigenous Oration here at Queen's. You're following the footsteps of Professor Marcia Langton, Professor Susan Pirima from New Zealand, Professor John Burrows from Canada, Dean Parkin, who's heading up the Yes campaign. He was online because it was during COVID. Last year was Sean Ewing, Professor Sean Ewing, and so it's terrific to have Dr. Jackie Huggins AM with us this evening. Jackie's a historian and an author who is known nationally and internationally through her speaking and also her writing, her books, and we did launch 2 of her books here last year during the Writers' Festival. She's made her career over 4 decades in areas of reconciliation, history, the arts, the environment, leadership, education, prison reform, domestic and family violence, health, housing, literacy, disability, human rights, women's issues, and really everything's covered, I think, by social justice initiatives. We originally got to know each other when Jackie was at the University of Queensland, and she was there for 14 years, I think, or so, from the 1990s through to the early 2000s. She's currently an adjunct professor at the ANU, Centre for Indigenous History, and an honorary Vice-Chancellor Fellow in Indigenous Leadership at Swinburne University. She's a part of the Indigenous Leaders and Cultural Advisors Group for the Atlantic Fellows for Social Equity at the University of Melbourne, and was a participant in the 2017 Uluru Statement from the Heart and all of the pre- and post-workshops. Amongst her current positions, she's the co-chair of the National Apology Foundation, First Nation Peoples Strategic Advisory Group and member of the Disability Royal Commission, First Nations Advisory Committee at the Australian War Memorial, and First Nations Messaging Project in Australian Progress. Our most recent appointment has been to be the co-chair of the Treaty Advancement Committee, and prior to this, the co-chair of the Eminent Panel and Treaty Working Group in the Pathway to Treaty in Queensland. She's also in the past been the co-chair of Reconciliation Australia, the Council for Aboriginal Reconciliation, the National Congress of Australian First Peoples. I could go on and on. I don't want to take up any more of Jackie's time. She said to me tonight that she flies under the radar compared with her friend Marcia Langton. I think you can see, if you just take a quick look at her CV, that she's a very appropriate person to be bringing the Indigenous Oration this evening, and she's also very humble when she made that statement. She's devoted her life to ensuring a just and equitable outcome, I think, for her people, and to reconcile a just and fair Australia for all of us, where we can all enjoy the benefits of this land. Please welcome Dr. Jackie Huggins.
Thank you very much, Stewart, for that most kind introduction. To all of you, thank you very much for coming out on it's a bit of a warm night tonight, isn't it, compared to what it'll be tomorrow, so I hear, 12 degrees. But thank you all very much for coming, I truly appreciate it. And I want to, of course, thanks very much, Hamish, for your welcome to country. Very important to keep doing those wonderful welcomes and acknowledgements, because they are so important to ground us in a place and give us safety. So thank you once again, Hamish. You've done a welcome for me once before last year, I think. Yeah, with here at Queen's College. I want to say to all of you, Wadamuli in my father's language. He's from North Queensland. And Naya Nangana Bidjara Mayara, which is my mother's greeting. I want to thank also the organisers, Queen's College, for having me here tonight, particularly Stewart, a very dear and old friend of mine, and we've always kept in touch about various issues. So, are you hearing me at the back there? Is that okay? Yeah, okay. All right. Well, first of all, as I've said, I'd like to recognise the country on which I stand and the elders of the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people. My name is Jackie Huggins, and I am a Bidjara, Birri, Gubba, Juru woman from Queensland, and I walk in the giant footsteps of my mother Rita, who struggled and worked for our people to be treated equally and recognised as this nation's first peoples. My mother was herself removed from her country in Carnarvon Gorge, Springsure, Western Queensland area, on the back of a cattle truck, and placed on Cherbourg Aboriginal Mission in the 1920s. This was the fate of many of our people in those days. And as we approach the referendum to be held in October, I am reminded of her and I, then a young child, 11 years of age, working together on the 1967 referendum that saw great success for our people and for Australia. And it spurs me on to work all that harder to achieve the next successful referendum. My personal activist commitment to justice and recognition for First Nations peoples has encompassed the last 50 years and include the current referendum working group, of which people like Marcia Langton and I are on, Treaty for Queensland, membership of key organisations, involvement and leadership in the reconciliation process, pursuing academic excellence so that I would have credibility and compassion, of course, as we do as academics, and becoming a published author, just to name a few things that I've done. I have been involved and led many of the issues to ensure equity and opportunity, and will continue to do this work in an attempt to prevent future generations of our First Nations peoples from suffering the humiliation and degradation of being seen as second-class citizens in our own country. The current 121-year-old constitution, which certainly is not our birth certificate, as some pundits say, ours is 65,000 plus years old. It does not recognise that Australia has a unique history. We are now on the brink of a true inclusivity by having the First Nations voice enshrined in the Constitution. And we know that the world's worst kept secret is that the referendum will be held on the 14th of October to allow the nation to vote. It is essential that the vote is a positive one. Governments of all persuasions have made protestations and drafted policies about improving the status of our people, who make up 3.2% of the population. Yet, the current mortality rate is 1.7 times higher in First Nations people, with 61 deaths occurring before the age of 65. And there's no wonder that we want superannuation a lot earlier, and perhaps at the age of 50. I'm sure this is something that the Voice will be working on too. First Nations peoples are 12.5 times more likely to be imprisoned as adults and 26 times more likely to be imprisoned as a child when compared to non-Indigenous Australians. Queensland housing, 6 times more likely to experience homelessness than other Queenslanders, twice as likely to live in severely overcrowded homes than other Queenslanders, and that exists all over this country. For First Nations peoples, there was no concept of homelessness before colonisation. Everyone had a place to call home. Home was with kin, on country, practising culture. No terms like jails, crime, stolen generations, poverty or disability existed either. Indigenous people have a special connection to this land, and this has been recognised to varying degrees by returning land under native title, hence protecting our unique rights. The question, of course, is how successful and long-lasting any interventions have been, and why, on balance, there has been a continued failure instead of solutions. Indigenous Australians have never ceded sovereignty. How could that be? Brett Walker, SC, has said, "The basis of settlement of Australia is and always has been ultimately the exertion of force by and on behalf of the British arrivals. They did not ask permission to settle. No one consented. No one ceded. Sovereignty was not passed from the Aboriginal peoples to the settlers by any actions of legal significance, voluntary, taken by or on behalf of the former or any of them. Our country, as we all know, was founded on a lie. Instructions from British Admiralty to Lieutenant James Cook to observe the genius, temper, disposition and number of natives, if there were to be any, and endeavour by all proper means to cultivate a friendship and alliance with them. You are also, with the consent of the natives, to take possession of convenient situations in the country in the name of the King of Great Britain, or, if you find the country uninhabited, take possession for His Majesty by setting up proper marks and inscriptions as first discoverers and possessors." We know that this did not happen. Arthur Phillip, and I quote, "To endeavour by every possible means to open an intercourse with the natives and to conciliate their affections, enjoying all our subjects live in amity and kindness with them." There's some conjecture that perhaps Phillip was a bit more humane than Cook and the others. And for all of this, in our country, people talk about prior ownership of the land. Well, my question is, where is the bill of sale? And next week, I'm going out to my country in central Queensland, my Bidjara country. And would you believe I've had to seek permission from the state government to enter a property, from the property owner as well, to enter and see the rock paintings, the rock carvings that some of my colleagues, ex-colleagues from University of Queensland, want to accompany me on that trip. But it's almost a kind of a humiliation that I have to do that as the traditional owner of that place. But nevertheless, I'll follow white man's law and I will do this. And when my friend said, oh, well, she said, well, you know, we've owned that property for about 5 generations now. And I emailed her back and I said, that's great. That's really nice to know. Well, can you show me the bill of sale? And she said to me, what's that? I said, exactly. Anyway. The thunders have opened. When we use the words voice, treaty, truth, they fall lightly off the tongue and resonate without threat to those listening. What we need to realise, however, is that these words and the processes surrounding them have both depth and complexity. These words carry with them the ability to erase hurtful discrimination, devastating genocide, and a lifetime of exclusion from a society that has neither been fair or just. The history of the Uluru Statement from the Heart and where we have arrived right now, how did we get there, is very long, we've had representations from Fred Maynard in 1927, going back to Indigenous leaders who have attempted to rectify the imbalance of our political response that has been meted out to our people. He wrote to the New South Wales Premier asking for the control of Indigenous affairs to an Indigenous board. In 1933, Joe Anderson, taking the name of King Burriga, chief of the Turrawal tribe, argued for self-determination and Indigenous representation in federal parliament. 1937, Yorta Yorta leader William Cooper requested representation. 1949, Pastor Doug Nichols also requested this. And in 1988, the Barunga Statement called for a national elected Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisation to oversee Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander affairs. And remember, that was about Bob Hawke promising us a treaty, which he never did, which he never saw through. And I remember an interview with his wife, Blanche Del Puget, who said that that was one of his biggest regrets in terms of not providing that treaty back then. I often wonder, when I think about this, would it have been Malcolm Turnbull's regret when he said to us, after we'd come back from Uluru, that there wasn't enough detail? No, he's not going to look at the Uluru State from the heart. Now he is one of the greatest supporters of the Yes campaign. How times have changed. Of course, we could go through the whole history of Aboriginal affairs, the Tent Embassy establishment in 1972, the Mabo judgment in 1992, which ended that often offensive 200-year concept of terra nullius, which means nobody's land. Now, there are various questions that we will see in the referendum that will come to mind. But in 1967, it was quite a simple one. And it said, do you approve the proposed law for the alteration of the Constitution entitled An Act to Alter the Constitution so as to omit certain words relating to the people of the Aboriginal race in any state, and so that Aboriginals are to be counted in reckoning the population, which of course meant to be counted in the census. Because up until that time, we were classified under the Flora and Fauna Act. We had the sheep, the goat, the cattle, the plants counted before we were counted as human beings in our country. 1967. And of course, what that did too was allow the federal government to make laws for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. They could override the states, which was a bit of a no-no when we saw issues of the Hindmarsh Island Bridge come to the fore and the NT intervention, where they actually did override that to put the military coup into communities in the Northern Territory. There have been about 7 Indigenous representative bodies, and some include in 1972, the National Aboriginal Consultative Committee that was set up by Whitlam. There were 41 elected Indigenous delegates from around Australia, and they would give advice to the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs. In 1975, Fraser replaced NACC with the National Aboriginal Conference, with 35 full-time salaried members, state and territory branches as a much more restricted voting system. This was axed by Hawke in 1985. And then, of course, everyone knows ATSIC. ATSIC, created by the Hawke government in 1989, abolished by Howard government in 2004. And of course, the last fully elected representative body, of which I co-chaired, the National Congress of Australia's First Peoples, established in 2010, and I co-chaired that for 2 years in its dying stages, and it was gone in 2019. But none of these bodies had constitutional protection. And people ask, well, why can't you just legislate? Well, you can, but what's the permanency and what's the protection around that? Will we have this gone at the stroke of a pen like we have other bodies? Now, leading up to Uluru, John Howard raised constitutional recognition around 1999, around the referendum and Republican debate. But the question remains, why hasn't anything been done by that government, the opposition, or this government now? You know, our voices are still being not heard and silenced. We saw Julia Gillard, the expert panel to facilitate the recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in 2010, reporting 2 years later, recommending significant constitutional change. In 2015, establishing the Referendum Council with bipartisan support with Turnbull and Shorten. And in 2016-17, the constitutional dialogues happened right across this country. And believe me, I've had a lot of skin in the game over 40 years. And that consultation process was the best I've ever seen in terms of bringing all those factions together and thrashing out a blueprint, a way forward. That is the Uluru Statement from the Heart. It was inclusive and very thorough, and how the leaders, particularly Megan Davis and Pat Anderson and Noel Pearson at that stage also managed to pull that off and pull it through, was quite amazing. The creation of the Uluru Statement from the Heart involved consultation with 9,400 First Nations peoples from hundreds of First Nations communities. From here, 230 First Nations people were elected to go to Uluru. From these 230 people, 223 stayed the course to compose the Uluru Statement. It is this fact that puts paid to the lie that Uluru Statement is not supported by most Indigenous people, and that there has been inadequate consultations. And I know that you've probably heard the figure of 83% of our people actually support the voice to Parliament. And I was lucky enough to be present at the formation of the Uluru Statement from the Heart, and for me it was one of the most profound experiences of my life. The government then established the Indigenous Voice co-design process, which culminated in the Kalma-Langton report in 2022. The Uluru Statement from the Heart calls for voice treaty truth. These aspirations are intended as a sequence of reforms. But I am constantly surprised as I talk across the country as to how many people have not even read it. They haven't even read it yet. It is the foundational document by which we are doing this for the referendum. If I have time, I will read it to you later, but it's a one-pager, folks. It really is. Not too long. I just have to tell you at this point, some of the most bizarre, we know that there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there, but some of the most bizarre stuff I've heard is that everyone will be, you're not allowed to go to the beach now, you will have to get permission, you're all excluded, including us, right? The other thing is, of course, will there be more houses and cars, freebies, handouts for Aborigines? And the last one, I think, which is a clinger, is that if the Lint Cafe siege happened today, and the Voice was there, they would have to call in the Voice to see what was to happen. And that came from a politician in the West who actually said that. And then we've heard about the notes that were left at Parliament House from people from the Yes campaign and what those notes said. Pauline Hanson actually talked about them. But there's a lot of that stuff going on, and I'll say, the racism now that people are absolutely experiencing. If you've been working in the marriage equality stuff, you would know this, that it is very, very putrid, toxic at the moment. I don't do social media for all kinds of reasons, and that's one of them, really. I don't want to read it, and I won't read it. I won't partake in it. People say, oh, you miss out, and why don't you go on Facebook? And I say, well, I've got a lot of friends. I don't need any more friends on Facebook, thank you very much. And would you believe or not, I am a private person in many respects. So what's out there now is pretty bad. It's getting worse daily and week by week. But I think definitely, everyone's waiting for it to finish fairly in the next 5 weeks that we've got to go. The referendum question on the day where people will be asked to vote, to write yes or no on a single question. And that question will be, in the ballot paper, will be a proposed law to alter the Constitution to recognise the First Peoples of Australia by establishing an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. Do you approve this proposed alteration? The constitutional amendment that follows that is that the proposed law that Australians are being asked to approve at referendum would insert the following lines into the Constitution. And that would be around a number of things, which will be, there's a body called the Voice. It will make representations to Parliament and to the executive government. We thought that was very important from the referendum working group, because look at robo-debt and look at other issues that have come up where people aren't held responsible. It just goes to the minister, and senior public servants get off scot-free sometimes, and are quite often rewarded and given promotions in other areas. and the third one, that the Constitution will have the power to make laws with respects to matters including the voice, its composition, functions, powers and procedures. So what happens after a successful referendum? After the referendum, and this is very important because people don't know this, there will be a process with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and the broader community to design the voice. I hope this would be between 6 to 12 months, but that depends on the government. A bill will then be developed to establish the voice. This would be introduced to Parliament and may be referred to a parliamentary committee to suggest ways to improve it. Parliament decides if it becomes law. What is the voice and what will it do? The referendum working group advising the government says there are design principles that we can look at, and they include it will provide an independent advice to Parliament and government. It will be chosen by First Nations peoples based on the wishes of local communities. It will be representative of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. It will be empowering, community-led, inclusive, respectful, culturally informed and gender balanced. It will also include youth. It will be accountable and transparent. The voice would be able to make representation proactively. The voice would have its own resources to allow it to research, develop and make representation. Members of the voice would be selected by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, not appointed by the executive government, which happens a lot of times in state and federal jurisdictions. The voice will work alongside existing organisations and traditional structures, so we're not really reinventing the wheel here. They will work with land councils, the Coalition of Peaks and other bodies who are doing good work at the moment. So why would you support the voice? The answer, one would think, would be simple. Indigenous people need to be involved at every level of the political process that dictate how these interventions will proceed. If policies are written and implemented or legislation passed without the infrastructure or channels to hear the voices of those who live the discrimination and inequities, why would the solutions be an appropriate fit? You do not need to be Einstein to realise that any process, no matter how well-being, will fail if it is not appropriate. One of the most critical issues is that any solution, including the establishment of a mechanism for consultation and advice, cannot and must not be able to be dissolved at the whim of whatever party is in power. An example, of course, of this was the abolition of ATSIC and the closure of organisations that did not reflect the value framework of the government of the day. The implementation of policies such as the intervention with no local Indigenous involvement was an unmitigated disaster. In 2004, I was the only Aboriginal woman and member on the ATSIC review. There were 3 of us, 2 non-Indigenous men. I said no 3 times to Philip Ruddock at the time, who would want to have that job, reviewing ATSIC. And of course I copped it from all sides, my own mob and everyone else. And our $2 million report did not even see the light of day. It was abolished by the then opposition leader, Mark Latham, and PM John Howard with the stroke of a pen. The review team had recommended a report called In the Hands of the Regions, which meant exactly as it said, power back to the regions rather than with the full commissioners in Canberra. This Canberra centralised solution caused unnecessary harm? Who retains accountability for these failures and the continual harm that occurs when that happens? But one good thing that came out of the review, even though I was the dissenting voice in this, was that there would be a 50-50 gender split representation. And I remember saying to my two comrades who didn't agree with me, and some of the ATSIC women commissioners too, who said it should be based on merit. But we know when the system's broken, you've got to fix it. I remember saying to them that at least all the women will love me. I don't know so much about the blokes, but some did. But as it turns out, it is common practice across organisations now and representative bodies. It's an expectation and rule which is infinite. You will normally have two co-chairs, one is a woman and one is a man, to run those organisations. I'm very proud of that. And I see that as one of my lasting legacies that I've done in terms of all the work that I've done. Very, very important. And I see that reflected in all the co-design of the new voice that will come to be. So why should we support the voice? It will give First Nations peoples a say in the laws and policies which affect them. When First Nations peoples with lived experience advise on policies and laws, it will improve their lives. First Nations peoples have asked for a voice enshrined in the Constitution. It is our best chance to close the gap. Indigenous Australians suffer discrimination, lack equal opportunity and are severely disadvantaged, as we know. First Nations people will finally be acknowledged in our founding document, the Constitution. It will provide certainty, durability and stability so that First Nations communities can plan and build for the long term. Taxpayers' dollars will be directed to policies that work on the ground, not once dreamed up in Canberra. It will unlock the full potential of the Uluru Statement, including agreement making and truth-telling. It will be embedded more in regional and remote community options than in national decision making, which is also important. Paul Kelly, singer and songwriter, had this to say about why he is voting yes. This country is my home, this beautiful country, unique in all the world. Our first Australians looked after it and shaped it over 60,000 years, and in doing so developed a rich and complex culture that is a gift to all of us, a gift that we enjoy every day in sport, art, music, dance, environmental knowledge and philosophy. That this gift and this deep history have not been recognised by us in our founding documents. Seems to me like a huge hole in our soul. It is also a big knock to our idea of ourselves as a land of a fair go. No one leaves us nowhere. Yes breathes in new air. That's why I'm voting yes. And please allow me to tell you why I am voting yes. We all want a future that is peaceful and prosperous. Our lives are intertwined and often complex issues which confront us. But this is a simple question with a number of answers. Personally, I want change. After working for decades in Aboriginal affairs and reconciliation, I have seen governments, politicians and bureaucrats come and go, but we are still here. Policies, programs, legislation attempting to shift the dial to overcome drastic statistics such as incarceration, child removal, close the gap, to name a few, have failed. The system is broken and we all need to fix it. I want the next generation of leaders to have a smoother ride than their previous leaders have had. And what a promising generation we have coming up. Young people who are culturally and morally sound. They have been grounded in their own cultures, their life experiences, and the teachings of senior people and elders. They also have been educated in the Western sense, having degrees and other qualifications to navigate their worlds. I am voting yes because I want to see a bigger future past the referendum. This will be for all of us, not just Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. It will be about unity and not division, mark my words. Writing yes will open the doors and opportunities. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Please don't squander it. Whereby everyone can determine and have a say in the nation building of our country. Ignore the fear-mongering and racist propositions that are being put forward in the current debate. The sky didn't fall in when native title, Mabo and the apology arrived, and this is no different. It is an act to correct the wrongs of the past, the dismal failure of governments to hear, listen, act and implement the wishes of Indigenous peoples, which may have changed the life circumstances of our people. That is why I am voting yes. In voting yes, we vote for treaties, self-determination, reconciliation, unity and so much more. The work will go on for generations, generations after us. And remember, for all of us, history is indeed calling. We hear much about the detail. Where is it? Well, us learned people know it is everywhere, folks. Reports, information and guiding principles for the voice. What it will do and what it won't do, just go and research it. And the Yes campaign is, if you don't know, find out. Why is it so hard, though, when it comes to blackfellas in our country? The details also cannot be constitutionalised. After that extensive consultation process I talked about post-referendum, it will be left to the Parliament to decide. This is the given process, and you can't put huge detail in the Constitution. Recognition is not achieved with fine-sounding words. There is a huge and stubborn gap in health, education and opportunities between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. The yawning gap is unfair and diminishes us all. By saying yes to a voice and listening to it, we can tackle these problems in a more effective way. Fairness cuts both ways. Having a voice gives people responsibility as well as agency. Being involved in decisions that impact your life brings with it accountability for those outcomes. I understand that there are many different points of view. Some say that a yes vote will divide us. I believe that nothing can be further from the truth. It is quite the opposite. This referendum is an invitation to join together, and saying yes will make us a more complete nation. The only time I've ever felt proud to be an Australian is when we walked over the Sydney Harbour Bridge in 2000. Supported by allies, black, white and brindle, disabled, old and young. And what a day that was. And I want to be an Australian again, come the 15th of October this year. The Uluru Statement has called for many things, and it is our opportunity now to actually have a say, and for all of us to say, come our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren asking, well, what did you do? How did you vote? Poppy and Nana. And, you know, we can tell them. I'm sure that we will all tell them how we voted. So up until this year, I have led and co-chaired the Path to Treaty work in Queensland. And at the end of the year, early next year, a Treaty Institute will be established along with the Truth Telling and Healing Inquiry. We have substantial funds from the Queensland Government to allow this to go ahead. $300 million, in fact. Myself and Mick Gooder cried when we heard that, because we'd never been in a position where you wouldn't have to put in, quarterly or yearly grants and get them acquitted. It's there, it's been quarantined from COVID, droughts, floods and other natural disasters. So we're looking forward to that, that aspect of that coming to fruition end of this year, early next year. We're about 2 years behind Victorians, but we'll certainly catch up. So in conclusion, as you can see, I've intertwined my messages of voice, treaty and truth throughout, and in no particular order in my oration tonight. One does not trump, and pardon the pun, the other. There is no hierarchy of importance in voice, treaty, truth, nor should there be. They are all conduits for the other and can be done simultaneously at the same time. We are indeed at the crossroads of what could result in the transformation of our country next month. In a few short weeks, we could arrive at the destination I know we would all like to see. To get off the platform of uncertainty and woes experienced daily for our people. But more than that, to be given permission to rise and shine in a way that all Australians benefit. We know our people are strong and resilient. How could it not be? Having existed here for over 65,000 years. Our links to nature and the environment go unrivalled anywhere in the world. We are living treasures in our own land. And I'd like to finish with the words of the late Mr. Unaipon. He says, "What Aboriginal people ask is that the modern world now makes the sacrifices necessary to give us a real future, to relax its grip on us, to let us breathe, to let us be free of the determined control exerted on us to make us like you. And you should take that step further and recognise us for who we are and not what you want us to be. Let us be who we are, Aboriginal people in the modern world, and be proud of us. Acknowledge that we have survived the worst that the past had thrown at us. And here we are with our songs, our ceremonies, our land, our language, and our people, our full identity. What gift is that? What gift is that we can give you if you choose to accept us in a meaningful way? And on that note, I just want to play this little thing for you to end my oration. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jackie. We are going to take some questions. Jackie, I might take the prerogative as being in the chair to ask a question, but it might be more of a comment. Our states seem to be so progressive in this area. Maybe it's the curse and blessing of the federal system, and yet the federal government has been so long in getting to this point. And you know, as we look at what's coming through at the moment, there is a sense of pessimism here as well, and yet there's so much optimism in what's happening, as you've shared about Queensland and here in Victoria, and we have some people who have been involved in treaty here in Victoria as well. Yeah. Do you get a sense of that? I mean, South Australia, other states?
Yeah, look, it really quite surprised us because you know what Queensland's like, you know? Lived there all my life and kind of through the Joe era and everything. And actually, the treaty was it was bipartisan support for us in Queensland. But the big thing is we had Sally Ann Atkinson there, who was our ex-Lord Mayor of Brisbane, and she knows why she was put on there. And we said, you're put on there because you're a Conservative, you're a Tory, and we need you to speak to the other mob. And she did that, and she got them across the line, which was fantastic. So that was I think that was a brilliant stroke of strategy for us in terms of the people we put on at first. But yeah, I believe, so we've been very surprisingly, I guess, you know, that pendulum swings both ways, and I'm very lucky to be there at that time, Stewart. Yeah. And Victoria.
Any comments or questions? I think you've stunned everyone into silence, so they want to get to refreshments.
Yes. All right,
there will be an opportunity to engage with Jackie over. Yes.
You made an offer that you might reach the speaker who is taken from the heart.
Oh yeah. Do you want me to? It'll only take 3 minutes. All right. You know, there are some very smart people like Thomas Mayer and others who can actually recite it. I can't, it's too long. I mean, you know, I used to have a really brilliant memory, I guess as we all did. Many years ago, I was 28, I think, and I headed up this, the DAA Aboriginal Women's Unit in Canberra under the guidance of Charles Perkins then, my great mentor. And we went to a function in Parliament House, and I had to introduce 50 women, right? Their names and where they were from. I did that. I didn't falter. I got all their names right and who they were and where they're from. I couldn't do that now. Yeah. Okay, here we go. We gathered at the 2017 National Constitutional Convention, coming from all points of the southern sky, and made this statement from the heart. Our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander tribes were the first sovereign nations of the Australian continent and its adjacent islands, and possessed it under our own laws and customs. This our ancestors did, according to the reckoning of our culture from the creation, according to the common law from time immemorial, and according to science more than 60,000 years ago. This sovereignty is a spiritual notion, the ancestral tie between the land, or Mother Nature, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who were born therefrom, remain attached thereto, and one day return thither to be united with our ancestors. This link is the basis of the ownership of the soil, or better, of sovereignty. It has never been ceded or extinguished, and coexists with the sovereignty of the Crown. How could it be otherwise? That people possessed a land for 60 millennia, and this sacred link disappears from world history in merely the last 200 years. With substantive constitutional change and structural reform, we believe this ancient sovereignty can shine through as a fuller expression of Australia's nationhood. Proportionately, we are the most incarcerated people on the planet. We are not innately criminal people. Our children are alienated from their families at unprecedented rates. This cannot be because we have no love for them, and our youth languish in detention centres in obscene numbers. They should be our hope for the future. These dimensions of our crisis tell plainly the structural nature of our problem. This is the torment of our powerlessness. We seek constitutional reforms to empower our people and take a rightful place in our own country. When we have power over destiny, our children will flourish. They will walk in two worlds, and their culture will be a gift to the country. We call for the establishment of a First Nations voice enshrined in the Constitution. Makarrata is the culmination of our agenda, the coming together after a struggle. It captures our aspirations for a fair and truthful relationship with the people of Australia and a better future for our children based on justice and self-determination. We seek a Makarrata Commission to supervise a process of agreement making between governments and First Nations and truth-telling about our history. In 1967, we were counted. In 2017, we seek to be heard. We leave base camp and start our trek across this vast country. We invite you to walk with us in a movement of the Australian people for a better future. Thank you.